Hi, I'm Giselle. Welcome to West B. Want to stay in the loop with everything happening at West B? Make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter. You'll get weekly updates plus a devotional newsletter that follows along with Pastor Sam's Sunday messages. It's the best way to stay connected and grow in your faith. Sign up now at newsletter.westb.org. Thinking about taking the next step at West B? We'd love to invite you to Connect Dinner on Sunday, March 2nd at 5 p.m. in the Fellowship Hall. It's a chance to hear more about our vision, beliefs, and what it means to be a member. Plus, you'll learn how you can get involved and serve in a way that fits your gifts. Childcare is available, so bring the whole family. Save your spot at connect.westb.org. Ever thought about going on a mission trip? It's not too late to sign up for a summer or fall trip. We have some amazing opportunities where you can serve, make a difference, and experience God in a whole new way. Find the trip that's right for you at missiontrips.westb.org. Well, that's it for now. Let's worship together.
When my faith Think of a place where your first reaction was overwhelming awe. Now, for me, that place is the Grand Canyon. I love the desert Southwest. I enjoy hiking in the desert, and I have been to the Grand Canyon many times. I've hiked in the backcountry of that area. I absolutely love it. And the first time I went was in my early 20s, and my friends and I just decided to go. We're going to go across country. I was living in Louisville, Kentucky at the time. We're going to go cross country. We're going to go camp out in the desert Southwest. We're going to go hike the Grand Canyon, like the whole Grand Canyon. Now, we didn't have kids at that time, obviously, because we just took off. And I remember getting there. We took the church van. They gave us permission to take the church van. No, if you're wondering, if you're part of my church, no, you cannot take the church van across country. But that's what my church let me do. And I remember getting there, and we talked to the rangers, and they gave us these backcountry permits, and they probably shouldn't have. But we took off down Grandview Trail. We hiked Tonto. We went back up Bright Angel. It was an amazing trip. And I just remember how awestruck I was with the creation that God gave us with the Grand Canyon. Now, a few weeks ago, we covered Psalm 19 in this series. And if you remember how Psalm 19 begins, it says, "The heavens proclaim the glory of God. The skies display his craftsmanship." We talked a lot about creation and how we can lose ourselves in creation. It's so grand, so big. And I felt that sense of awe in the Grand Canyon. And I'm sure as you're listening to this, maybe your thing isn't hiking, maybe your thing isn't the Grand Canyon, but it's got to be something, right? And I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, when you feel this awe. But what is awe, and how does it connect to worship? So awe and reverence mixed with, well, let's define awe. Awe is reverence mixed with feelings of fear and wonder. So there were several parts of trails in the Grand Canyon that were simultaneously scary and wonderful. It's like, this is amazing, and my heart is about ready to pop out of my chest. You're looking over the side of a cliff, 2,000-foot drop. This trail is amazing, but it's 2 feet wide. So there's that fear that you have of, man, I don't want to lose my footing. But it's at the same time, it's the best view your eyes have ever seen. There's this wonder that you have. That feeling that I had, that feeling that you've had that's similar, is awe. Now, around 6 Hebrew words and 3 Greek words can be translated as awe or awesome or some similar term. The specific word awe is used about 25 times in the New Living Translation, but there's several derivatives there as well. When we were kids, me and my brothers would ride our bikes, and we would try to make jumps over various objects. I am certain many of you did the same thing. And when we would make a particularly long jump, at least in our minds, we were doing that. I mean, we're kids. And, you'd almost crash. I mean, you would make this big jump, bigger than you've ever done before. And you reach the edge of your body's limits. And it's you almost crash, but you catch yourself just at the right time. Somehow you stay upright on the bike. What would we say? We would say, "That was awesome." We loved it. That thrill that you get. And this one time, we sent my middle brother Art, down a very steep road in a wagon, like a little Red Ryder wagon. And we were not thinking this through. He probably got up to about 25 miles an hour and realized that he was about to enter into a major intersection. So he somehow maneuvered the wagon off to the side of the road and figured he would use the stop sign to stop. But he put out his leg to stop himself on the stop sign. And as you can imagine, it did some damage. In fact, it broke his leg. And that was not awesome, because my mother in particular was not very pleased with the fact that we were doing this. When we get right to the edge, and when we get to that point when fear and wonder are mixed together, that's where we say, this is awesome. Psalm 119, 120. I tremble in fear of you, and I stand in awe of your regulations. I mean, this is what we're saying about God. I fear the Lord. I am in awe of him. That combination of fear and wonder is awe. That is how we should worship God. In the same way, you're like hiking the Grand Canyon. You're so close to the edge. There's a level of fear, but at the same time, there's so much wonder. This is how we should approach God. When Jesus healed a demon-possessed boy in Luke chapter 9, verse 43, it says that awe gripped the people as they saw this majestic display of God's power, fear, and wonder. They're responding to the power of God. This response of awe is often associated with a demonstration of God's power. So we're in this series on the words of worship, and as you can tell, today's word is awe. We've looked at, first week, generosity, creativity, celebration, surrender. Last week was love. Today is awe. Next week we'll end with the word unity. And I want you to think of these words as keys to experiencing God. And as I've mentioned many times, a key unlocks or starts something. So I hope that this series helps to unlock, a better worship experience for you, or at minimum, start it. And these 7 words hopefully will start or continue, be a catalyst for a better relationship with God. So let's talk today about that word, awe. It's 3 letters, A-W-E, pretty basic word. To understand awe, we have to understand fear. So phobos, Greek word, is translated fear, found throughout the Bible, but it means filled with awe. Don't miss that. So there's a connection between fear and awe. In the New Testament, the Greek word phobos is often translated. The actual word is fear. But you can, depending on the context of the verse, you can sometimes pull out that meaning of they were awestruck. It's that feeling you get right at the edge of a cliff where the views are the best, but the fear is maximized. Now, of course, as we talk about God, fearing God, yes, God has the power to destroy you, but he wants to take you to the grandest place possible. It's this amazing mix of fear and wonder. God wants that for us. He wants us to feel that. Jim Elliot, a famous missionary who actually died on the field he was killed by the people he was trying to reach. Here's what he said. He wrote this in his diary. He said, "The Lord made mountains to climb, not just to look at. And up there one understands why, seeing the vista that most folks never see with a sense of farness that most never feel." It was the Aka tribe who would murder him, kill him. He was martyred. His wife, Elizabeth, and many of you know this story. If you don't, you should go check out Elizabeth Elliot's writings and the story of Jim Elliot. So his wife, Elizabeth, after Jim had been killed, would go back to the tribe that killed him, and she won them to Christ. There's that idea of fear mixed with wonder, bringing about awe. And it's driving her to go to the very people who killed her husband to share the good news with them. Moses hid when God appeared in the burning bush in Exodus 3. Isaiah cried, "Woe is me, I'm ruined," in his book, chapter 6. He says that when he sees, the Lord in all of his glory. When the resurrected Jesus appeared to Saul on Damascus Road, Saul prostrated himself in fear and trembling, it says in Acts 9. There's this idea that, God's presence, God's power brings about this awe response. When Jesus heals the paralyzed man, it says in that text, he also forgives his sins. And in Luke 5, verse 26, it says, everyone was gripped with wonder and awe, and they praised God, exclaiming, we have seen amazing things today. Now, were they impressed with Jesus' ability to heal physically? Yes. But what brings about awe in their response is that he forgave spiritually. When the early church was formed following the Pentecost, in Acts chapter 2, verse 43, it says, a deep sense of awe came over all of them. And the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. Again, fear, awe, wonder. It's all mixed together. The Holy Spirit was working among these early Christians, and they were filled with a sense of awe because God's power was working through them. When someone is confronted with God's presence, the proper response is awe. And it's quite a mix of different things. As we said, fear and wonder are two components of awe. Fear, God can destroy me. Wonder, God can save me. It's wild how, those two things go right together. But it's also reverence. Awe has this idea of, God deserves my praise. Awe includes an element of faith, where you have this posture of, I will place my faith in the one who has the power to destroy me. And when I do, I'm assured that he will not destroy me. So there's this God who can destroy me, but if I place my faith in him, he won't. That brings about a sense of awe. Now, I want to take you to Psalm 33. And this is where we're going to camp for a little bit. There's many, many passages I could bring you to, but I want to bring you to parts of Psalm 33. We won't look at all of it today. If you've not read this psalm, or if it's been a while, read it today. But let me read you verses 6 through 15. The Lord merely spoke, and the heavens were created. He breathed the word, and all the stars were born. He assigned the sea its boundaries and locked the oceans in vast reservoirs. Let the whole world fear the Lord, and let everyone stand in awe of him. For when he spoke, the world began. It appeared at his command. The Lord frustrates the plans of nations and thwarts all their schemes. But the Lord's plans stand firm forever. His intentions can never be shaken. What joy for the nation whose God is the Lord, whose people he has chosen as his inheritance. The Lord looks down from heaven and sees the whole human race. From his throne, he observes all who live on the earth. He made their hearts so he understands everything they do. Now, for those of you who are in my life group on Wednesday nights, we looked at this a few weeks back. I'm sure you remember everything I said, but just in case you don't, let me kind of circle back here, and there's a lot of you who are not in my life group, so let's take a look at this. Now, remember, the response of awe is often associated with the demonstration of God's power. So the more you submit to God's power, the better you worship him. So what's the connection here? We've got awe, which is like fear and wonder and reverence and submission and faith. Well, what's the connection to worship? The more you submit to God in awe, the better you worship him. Now, let's define who God is, because he's sovereign, which means he has absolute power. God, according to Psalm 33 and other Psalms and other places of the Bible, Genesis also, God is the author of all of creation. All things depend on him. And God is in all and over all, which means he's in total control. And with that comes all power. Why would we submit to God? It's because he has all the power. He has all the authority. And Psalm 33 connects the concept of power with worship. So God's absolute power is comprehensive here. If you look at verse 13, it says that God is over the human race. If you look at verse 14, it says it's all who live on earth. Verse 15 says he governs everything they do. So God's power is comprehensive in your life. It's over all areas. Why would we submit to him? Because he's sovereign over every area of our life. And not only that, I mean, he's not just us personally, but the entire world. He assigned the sea its boundaries, verse 7. I mean, how much water is in the ocean? It's just a sip to God. He put it there. Absolute power belongs only to God. If you look at verse 9, he speaks and it happens. God's word and his work are inseparable. If he thinks it, it happens. Let's think about powerful people. So, they're not God. They never will be. Some people think they are, but they're not. So powerful people are able to command their thoughts into action. Like they want something, they go get it. So power is the gap between desires and doing. So I want this, I have this, right? So the more power you have, the smaller the gap between I want this and I have this. A lot of us want a lot of different things. There's plenty of things I want, but because I don't have a ton of power, I don't get them. Now, you may say, well, wealth can cause that, but yes, wealth is power. So power is the gap between I want this and I have this. Power bridges the divide between those two statements, and the smaller that gap, the greater the power. So you think of a tyrant, somebody who is, has complete power over a country or a nation or a people group. Tyrants have a very small gap, and because of that, they end up abusing their power. God has no gap. His intentions always happen. But the thing about God is that he never abuses his power. His power is always good. So God's power is not tyranny. If you look back at Psalm 33, it's based on perfect knowledge. Look at verses 13 through 15. Perfect knowledge. It's based on perfect control. It's based on perfect love. Look at verse 22, unfailing love. Now I want to look at two more verses here. So let's go to Psalm 33, verses 18 and 19. But the Lord watches over those who fear him, those who rely on his unfailing love. He rescues them from death and keeps them alive in times of famine. Did you get that? Who does God help? Who does God save? Who connects with God best? Those who have awe or those who fear God. If we think about our own sin is simply a power play against God that you will not win. Sin is simply choosing your way instead of his way. And this is the lie of the power of sin, where you begin to think, I cannot be happy unless I have total control. I cannot be happy unless I do this. And for most of us, we don't like losing control. So how do you know? How do you even know? How do you know that you have power issues? The way that you know you have power issues is you have submission issues. You won't submit to legitimate earthly authorities, just whoever that may be in your life. And you will ultimately rebel against God's authority. You guys remember that video game, Missile Command? If you're younger, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you're in your 40s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe 50s too. So Missile Command it's a classic video game. I believe it was the Atari 2600, if I'm not mistaken. And it was really during the golden era of video games and arcades. And the game fed off fears of the Cold War in the early 1980s. And I love this game. Some of us, I loved playing it, shooting down. You've got these missiles coming at you. They're going to destroy your city. And you've got to protect your cities. And you've got to shoot back and destroy the missiles before they destroy you. And some of us live our lives like this, thinking we can shoot down every problem coming our way. Now, here's the thing about missile command. It starts out to where you're like, I got this. And, the missiles come down and you shoot and you destroy the missile. There's another one and you can get it. And you get to the next level and the next level and the next level, and it starts to get harder. You can't win the game. At least, I never got that far. You can't win. The missiles just keep coming faster and faster. There are more and more of them. You can't ultimately control your own life. You can't keep up. Maybe you can kind of start that way. Maybe for seasons you can. Some people for longer seasons. Maybe you're better at the game of life than others. But you can't win the game on your own. How do we break this cycle of just trying to shoot down our own problems over and over and over again, ultimately failing? How do we break this cycle? That's verse 12. What joy for the nation whose God is the Lord, whose people he has chosen as his inheritance. We rest in knowing that we are his possession, that we belong to God. So ultimately, awe is a disposition, not an emotion. An emotion is a temporary response to an external event or internal stimulus. But if it's a disposition, if awe is a disposition in our lives, that's a person's inherent tendency or temperament or outlook. So awe is not about how we feel in the moment. Can you stand on the side of a cliff, the Grand Canyon, and be in awe? Like this fear, I want to fall 2,000 feet, this wonder, look at these views. And do you feel it? Of course you do. But awe is something greater. Awe for God is more than just the emotions in the moment. Awe is what you do to submit to God and how you trust in his future. So there's a couple here. I'll end with this. Here's a couple questions. Are you trying to control the present? Is your life like missile command right now? It's like, I just don't, this part of my life, this city got destroyed, but maybe I can protect this other part. Are you trying to control the present? Or, better for all of us, or are you submitting to God's future? If you're just living for the present, trying to shoot down every problem that comes your way, you're going to fail. But if you're submitting to God's future, you know that no matter what happens, he's got it. And he has you. That's the best place to be.